Hi, welcome back to Pine Hollow Quilts as we demonstrate our fifth block in the sampler sew along today. Today is our guest speaker day and she's going to be doing a block called Ohio Star. Don't let the little pieces intimidate you. There are some little ones, but you can do it. Watch through the video first, go back through and then sew along with her. I have already made the block for you. There you go. It's a really fun block. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to make a whole series of these with this hot air balloon fabric and my grunge fabrics. I already have them all picked out. It's going to be a really cool little quilt, and I'll show that to you sometime when I get time to do it. However, make sure you subscribe at the bottom so that you can get notification of all of our future videos. And if you have any questions, please ask them. I will get back to them as soon as I see that they're up there. And Nancy's going to give you all of the directions. She's going to give you the printouts for the cutting instructions like I always do. She's going to show you her sample fabrics. Please go with her selections as far as lights, mediums, and darks. And you know, you're going to come up with something that's really great and fantastic too. Now here's Nancy and on with our Ohio Star block.
Hello, how are you today? We are going to make an Ohio Star block that looks like this. Now, this block has a number of different pieces to it. As you can see, it's a standard 9-patch configuration. That means there's 9 blocks that we have to make to put together to make the whole thing. And each one of those blocks can be used in different patterns and quilts. This block here is called an Irish chain block. This block is an hourglass block. And then you put these all together and you have your Ohio Star. And this actually has 2 Ohio Stars because the center block is also an Ohio Star. So let's talk about the colors that I used here. I suggest you follow a pattern something like this. I have my colors laid out. We have a background. Pick a background. You want the colors to stand out against the background. So you need to have a background that's light enough or dark enough to be a good contrast with your colors in your block. Then we need 2 colors, medium colors, and I call this yellow here kind of a recessive color. It's not as bold or as concentrated as the color I used for the star points. As you can see, that makes the star points stand out better. So pick your colors accordingly. And then what I like to call my final color is my dazzle color. Now this is in my block only a little bit. It's in the center, but it helps pop all the other colors. So pick something dramatic, a complementary color, a print that uses the colors in your block and adds maybe something a little interesting. So pick your colors accordingly. It'll make your block really stand out. Okay, stop a second and we'll get organized. Oh, I can move around.
Don't record, stop.
Okay. All right, now we're ready to start cutting. We're going to take our background A fabric and we're going to cut it into 2 strips like this, and we're going to label them A1 and A2. And the measurements are there. You're going to cut a 3 1/4 inch strip and a 1 3/4 inch strip. And the A1, A1 needs to be about 15 inches long, and A2 only needs to be 9 inches long. The second cutting we're going to do is we're going to cut the C fabric. If you labeled it, this is going to be the Irish chain block, so that's the fabric that's going to be your color in the Irish chain. And we're going to cut 1 3/4 inch strip, about 15 inches long, and that's going to be C1, this one. And we're going to cut a 2-inch strip, that's C2, and that needs to be about 9 inches long. Now go ahead and get those cut and then come back and we'll start the assembly for the Irish chain. All right, the first thing we're going to sew together is we're going to sew the C1 and the A1 strips together. Just do a 1/4 inch seam and stitch it down so you have a unit that looks like this. And then you're going to press toward the dark color. When you press it, make sure you open the seam well, that doesn't have any tucks in it, and press it nicely. Then you're going to take your A2 and your C2 strips and you're going to sew them together. You're going to need 2 A2 strips and 1 C2 strip, and you're going to sew them together. Again, press toward the dark color so that these fit together nicely. And that's the other piece we're going to need. So go ahead and get that done and then come back. All right, we have our 2 units put together with the A2, C2, A2 strips and the C1 and A1 strip. At this point, I think the best thing to do is to check and make sure you sewed these accurately. This is very important and is a good way to test to see if you're getting your 1/4 inches right. This should measure exactly 4.5 inches. This should be at the 1.5 inch line right here. And it should end up right at 4.5 inches. If your measurement is off, then your 1/4 inch seam is not accurate. Make some adjustments. Now is the time to always do that, and so you get your machine correctly adjusted. So that's a good thing to always do when you're starting a block or a series of blocks, is to make sure you're accurately sewing. This also should measure exactly 4.5 inches. Let me put it on there correctly so that you will have a finished block that is going to be the right size. Okay, so be sure to check these things as you go. That's how you get your piecing to improve over time. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to take our A1 block. I'm going to take these little pink things off now that we're past this. And we need to subcut this into 1 1/4 inch strips. Now the first thing you do before you subcut is to trim the end off, and I gave you plenty of space to do that. So make sure, whenever she's ready there. Okay, put a line from your ruler on the seam line. Don't measure from the edges of the fabric. Measure always on the seam line. You'll get much better reads. Then trim off a little chunk of the end, so you have a nice clean end. Flip it around, and we are cutting 1 3/4 inch strips. So put your ruler on there. Always hold the ruler with some fingers on the table. And cut, we need 8 strips. Now, as you're cutting these, one of the things I would suggest you do is pay attention, put a line on the seam there, and if it starts looking a little wonky, like you're not getting a straight cut, trim off a little bit more on the end and start again, because I always find that the ruler, the fabric sometimes will slip at the end and you'll end up going a little sideways. So that's what I always do, is double check it as I go. And it still looks good. I had some already cut off of this to make the blocks I already made. So you keep cutting until you get your eight pieces. Okay, so that's how you make that subcut. And then on this block we need 4 2-inch strips. So I'm going to take these little papers off. I'm going to trim the end so I have a nice clean end. and cut 2-inch blocks off the end here. And I need 4 of these. So continue cutting until you get your 4. Now, and again, watch the lines here to make sure you're on the square. Now, I had already cut some off of here, so I made 1 block. There we go. And it looks like this. So you're going to take these and you're going to put them together like this. You should see that your seams nest when you do this, since you ironed them so perfectly. Now when you stitch seams like this, they're good. When you stitch, you're going to nest them together and stitch. Now when you stitch, it's best if you stitch down into the fold. So if this is folded up, that's the best way to do it. So stitch so that you're hitting the fold. I probably should put this on this side for my sewing machine. And stitch down there. Stitch 1 on the other side and make your 4 blocks. So you'll need 4 blocks that look like this. So I'll let you get to that and come back when you're ready. We can plug it in if you want. Now that you've finished putting together the Irish chain, we're ready to start building our hourglass blocks. So what you'll need for this is you'll need to cut some larger squares, and you need 1 5 1/4 inch square of your background fabric, 1 5 1/4 inch square of your dazzle fabric, and 2 5 1/4 inch squares of your fabric B, the one you're going to use for the points on your stars. That'll help us get part of that done. Then you'll need some smaller blocks for the little block we're going to make, and you'll need 1 2 3/4 inch of the background, 1 2-inch block. From the dazzle fabric, you'll need 1 1 3/4 inch and 1 2 3/4 inch. 4 1 3/4 inch blocks and 1 2 3/4 inch block. Okay, we'll hold up the signs in a minute so you can get the numbers. And then you'll need 2 2 3/4 inch by 2 3/4 inch of the B fabric. So that's the background fabric. She's showing you the measurements that you need to cut. Then the dazzle fabric, which is your complementary color fabric. And your B fabric, the one you're using for the points in your star. Now, after you've cut these, the next thing you're going to want to do is take your 2 lighter fabrics, these 2 are my lighter ones, and draw a line corner to corner on one side on both of these fabrics. Do you see? It's not real dark. Can you see it there? Okay. Once you've drawn that line, and it's good to use a ruler that is thin. This doesn't work well to get a good line with an acrylic ruler. It's better to use a normal ruler that you can get a pencil or a marker of some kind right down in there so you get a nice accurate line. Then you're going to take your B fabric and you're going to put it right sides together. So these lines are on the wrong side, of course. I'm using batik, so all sides are right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Line them up as carefully as you can so all the edges match. Do the same for the B fabric and the background. Get them as good as you can. If you think they're going to move, put a pin on the sides so that you get it so that they stay where you put them. Then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch on either side of this line. You're going to go up a 1/4 inch on this side and down a 1/4 inch on the other side. So these are stitched. Here's a smaller one we're going to end up making, but you can see the stitching. So you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch either side of the center line. And then come back, and I'll give you time to get up to that point and come back and we'll do the next step. All right, we're back and we have stitched together a background and a bee fabric and the dazzle color and a bee fabric. Now you can see I did my stitching with a little lighter thread so you could see it easily on here. I'll bring it up a little closer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and we're going to cut right exactly in the center of the diagonal. So I will do that. And cut in this diagonal. Now we're halfway to the hourglass block. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to open these up and iron them, press them open. Okay, press towards, let me double check, press towards the dark on these. Open these all up and press them. Once they're pressed, what you're going to do is you're going to take one of each together here, and you're going to put these together so that the bee fabric is on opposite sides, like this. Okay, and you're going to line those up. You should have the seams opposite if you pressed correctly. Make sure that's all happening and get those fit together nice and careful. Now this is important that you line these up well for the block to come out nicely. Once you've done that, you're going to make a diagonal line across the center of that pattern. See, you're going to have one side. Did I do this wrong? No, I did it right. Okay, you can have one side that's dazzle and blue, and the other side is going to be background and the bee fabric, like this. And you're going to draw a line, and then stitch both sides of that. And I'll give you time to get that done. Now that you've come back and you've got your block sewn together like this, and you've got your two lines of stitching, again, we are going to cut it apart down the middle. Now, the way we did this, you will have perfect points in the center of these two blocks. If you open this up, you will see, oh my God, you can't do any better than that. Look at how beautiful that point is. You can't go wrong. Nest them well, stitch them, and there you go. Perfect blocks. Now, once again, you are going to press this. Now, let me show you here in the center. What you want to do when you open this up to press is put it face you with the seam you just stitched. Put your thumbs in the middle and twist. And see what happens? It opens up. Now you want to press like this. Do you see how I did that? Now this opens into a nice little four patch in the center, and you get nice flat seams, and this makes it much easier when you quilt. You have less bulk in the middle than if you folded that all over on itself. You want to do that in the center of all these blocks. Practice. I'll do one other one. Okay, so you aim it. I'm on the side, so I'm aiming it toward me, so this seam is across. Put my thumbs on either side of that seam and just twist. It's going to unstitch a few stitches, which is fine, and then just flatten it out. There you go. And press it down. Now the way the pressing is, this will press right around in a circle there. You'll get a nice clean press out of that. So I recommend you do that. Give it a try. Once you get the hang of it, you'll see that that makes a really good intersection. All right, now you should have finished your 4 blocks, and they're going to go together. You know, you can see like this. Now might be a good time to double check, they should all be 4.5 inches. If you want to trim off the points, the little dog ears on the corners, now's a good time to do that. But this is your pattern. This is the way we're going. And now we have to make the center block. But the center block is going to be very much like what we already did. So that'll be the easiest block. It'll just be littler. So we take our 2 3/4 inch squares that we cut. We cut a background and 2 bees and a dazzle color. Those were on our cutting instructions. Put them together just like you did for the bigger blocks. We're going to put a bee on one side and one of each color on the other like this. We're going to draw a line down the centers and stitch on either side of the line so that we have our stitches. Then we're going to cut them apart just like we did on the other sides. I'll give you a chance to get that done. All right, so now we're working on the center block, and we have put together, we have stitched the first 2 pieces together. Now we've nested these together. Again, remember you want a dark, the blue or the bee color on opposite sides, and you want these colors opposite like this. And we're going to put that together like that. And we're going to again draw a line opposite corners here, straight across, and stitch on either side of it. You're going to do that to both of these 2 sets of blocks. And when you have that done, come on back. Okay, we're back. We've made our hourglass blocks for the centerpiece, and we need to adjust the size. An hourglass only works if you're making it into a square. But we really need a block that is 2 by 1 3/4. And we need to take the extra piece off on the background side of the block. So we're going to take this block and we're going to measure 1 3/4 from the dazzle side over, and we're going to make a cut and just take off this little piece. We're going to do that on all the blocks. And if you want to trim off your little points, be sure to do that. Make it nice and pretty. And when you're cutting these like this, always measure the part you're keeping. Measure your 1 3/4 on the part you're keeping, and then throw away whatever's left. It doesn't matter how big that piece is. It's what you don't want anyway. Okay, so we're going to cut these all down. Now, the reason this block turned out like this is because we are taking a 4-inch block and we're making a 9 patch out of it. Well, 4 doesn't divide evenly by 3, so I made some adjustments in the sizes so that we would get nice pieces we could measure to 1/4 inches. Then you're going to put this block together by putting these little squares you cut in the corners, and there's our center block. When you're finished putting this together, this is a 4.5 inch block all together, and we've made a small Ohio star. So there's your center block. All right, now we're back, and you've built all your blocks. We have 4 blocks that are the hourglasses. We have 4 blocks for the Irish chain, and we have 1 center block that is our Ohio star. So now we're going to line these up. Now we want to put the dazzle fabric from these corners against the center on all these. So line these up like this. I always like to lay them out first so I don't sew them together backwards. Then we're going to put the Irish chain blocks. I like them to go like this. Use your imagination. If you decide you want to turn them sideways or something, that works too. It's your block. You do what you like. And then we have our 9 patch with all the blocks ready and done. And now you just have to stitch this together and press. So that'll make your 12.5 inch block unfinished. So when you get it all together, square it up and you'll be ready to put it in your quilt. Now we're back and you have stitched all your blocks together, so you now have this block all finished and ready to go in your quilt. Now just to give you a little idea of what you can do with these different blocks we've made and how you could vary this for a quilt of your own, I took some fabrics and I cut out and made some little blocks, and I want to show you how you could change this up. This is a basic Ohio Star block, just a 9 patch with just blanks or a solid in the corners and in the center. Now you can change this. Now here I'm adding corners that are our Irish chain. So you can see how that helps the block a little bit. It adds a little bit more interest. You've got a little movement in it now because things are going around, and you see that there's a little bit more excitement. Now you can change this block. Now we can have the center match our Irish chain color. So that gives you a different look. But we could also make that Irish chain go right into the middle by making a 9 patch that matches our Irish chain colors. So that gives us a different look. Now I'm going to change this out to put a dazzle color in the middle. Now you saw how our block turned out, but see how if we change up these sides, and I picked up a wild fabric that I had in my stash, and there you go. See how lively that looks. And so you can change around how you use your colors and how you use the placement and make a lot of varieties of blocks with these patterns that we learned today. So be sure to do that. And it's been wonderful spending this time with you. And I hope you enjoy this block as much as I do.